truly magnificent. A figure stepped out from behind a large tree, clapping their hands while sneering. Their eyes were full of disdain. It was Qin Yang, the eldest son of Qin Kuang, one of the 8 elders of the Qin family. At the age of 18, he was a 7th-tier martial artist and one of the contenders for the autumn hunt competition. Despite his seemingly harmless appearance, Qin Yang was treacherous, skilled in cunning strategies, and adept at manipulating others to do his bidding. His deeds had earned him the favor of the Elder Council. "Qin Yang, what do you want?" Qin Shan, clutching his chest with one hand and supporting himself with the other, slowly stood up, his heart filled with fear. He had heard of Qin Yang's reputation, using others as pawns and eliminating them without a second thought. He never expected that he would be the target this time. At that moment, Qin Niu, struggling with coughs, forced himself to rise, gathering his energy in preparation for a fight. "You should just give up," Qin Yang said, walking over to the corpse of the fierce king tiger. He looked at the still-breathing fierce fire tiger, a cold smile curling on his lips. "This 5 points are mine." With that, he unsheathed his steel blade and swiftly decapitated the beast. Lifting the tiger's head with a grin, Qin Yang pulled out a spatial wood token. With a wave of his hand, the head of the fierce king tiger vanished into the token. The spatial wood token was a rudimentary storage item in Tianyuan continent with limited space and craftsmanship. It didn't require blood to bond with the owner, so anyone could use it. All participants in the autumn hunt received 1 to store the heads of beasts, making it easier to collect points by defeating opponents. If someone took a token from a fallen opponent, they would gain ownership of all the contents within it. Qin Shan and Qin Yu stood there in shock, their hearts filled with anger and regret. It was their own greed that had led them to this situation. After collecting the points, Qin Yang didn't leave immediately. Instead, he walked toward Qin Shan with a sinister smile. "The Qin family doesn't need useless trash." "Qin Yang, what do you want? You wouldn't dare." Before Qin Shan could finish, Qin Yang swung his sword, its energy cutting through the air and beheading Qin Shan. With the task done, Qin Yang turned to Qin Yu. The latter, desperate and wounded, tried to flee, but with only 5th-tier martial skills, there was no way he could outrun or match Qin Yang. "Please, spare me. If you let me go, I'll withdraw from the competition. Please." "Beg me. You're not even qualified to beg." With that, Qin Yang leaped through the air, using the force of the tree branches to propel himself higher. With a wild laugh, he brought his sword down on Qin Yu, splitting his body in 2. Blood splattered everywhere, creating a gruesome scene. In the shadows, Qin Tian, who had been watching the whole time, was left feeling queasy. "Ha, this guy is insane," Qin Tian muttered, unable to hold back his disgust at the scene unfolding before him. What had happened earlier would be considered extreme even in movies. Now, seeing it in real life, he barely kept his stomach in check. Wait, why is this girl not scared? At the beginning, Yunman was terrified of the colorful insects, yet now, she showed no fear, even in the midst of a bloody murder. Qin Tian turned to see Yunman with her head buried in her knees, unmoving, as though she was trying to hide from danger like an ostrich. "Hey, hey!" Qin Tian called softly, but there was no response. Frustrated, he gently pushed her, only to watch her collapse to the side and faint. Not again. She passed out from fear? Qin Tian couldn't believe his eyes. He had been tasked with protecting her, but now she was just an additional burden. Is this to increase the difficulty of the game? Great, now I have to babysit, he grumbled before shaking his head in annoyance. He scooped her up onto his back and started making his way toward the edge of the Kunlun Mountains. Having just endured an attack from Qin Shangtian that had drained most of his energy reserves, Qin Tian was now faced with the urgent task of replenishing his energy. If he encountered stronger opponents like Qin Kun or Qin Tian, he would be in serious trouble. As the sun set and night began to fall, the forest grew ominously silent. The night was the perfect time for beasts to hunt, while the martial artists in the competition usually found shelter, waiting for the morning light. Martial artists' vision was limited to a range of 10 meters at night, but the beasts were far more attuned to the darkness, with enhanced senses and sharper perception. The night belonged to them. As the moonlight barely penetrated the thick foliage, The sound of a lone wolf's howl echoed through the forest, signaling the beginning of the hunt. With the night setting in, Qintian, now a predator in his own right, stalked the shadows, his eyes gleaming with cold determination.